and instead they go to Christian McCaffrey, who's able to pick up a first down on a screen. I'll just say this, and then we'll get to carry on. I don't think that it would hurt San Francisco if they scored quickly here. Because if Philadelphia does score again, you will want some time. If you end up taking this game down, if you only kick a field goal and there's 3 minutes or 2 minutes left, does leave the door open for Philadelphia. And really what is most important is the stop as opposed to anything that you would get against Philadelphia. So if you're San Francisco and you scored quickly and you stop them, you're then really in the catbird seat, obviously. But you also maybe wouldn't mind leaving some time at the other end, but you don't want to do anything stupid either, right? And get a sack or a holding penalty. So you just hand it off to Christian McCaffrey, which they did on 1st and 10.
And then this is why these head coaches in the NFL get paid the big bucks. Because these are the decisions you have to make, right? Like, well,
half of them make the wrong decision.
Exactly.
They do, right?
They do.
I mean, just what do we do?
Because, like, this is like in my time, right? You see this. We actually practice these situations, right? 4 minutes. We want to go down. We want to run the clock. We want to get first downs. We don't want to score early. But now in this day and age, exactly what you're saying, like you have to start thinking about those things as well because these teams are so aggressive. It's not the same NFL when I was there, right? Like these guys would actually do things by the book, and right now they're doing things by metrics, which is different.
Matt LaFleur, they got a delay of game after a timeout last night.
Yes.
Another reason to not keep it.
They did.
Defensive holding on Philadelphia is going to give the Niners a fresh set of downs. It'll take them just outside the red zone, so they'll have it at about the 21-yard line, a 1st and 10. Again, they trail Philadelphia in this game right now, 19-17.
And Blankenship's having a bad day. He got the holding penalty there. So
Reed got red. How about that? You like that, Mary Mac? Huh? She gave me the thumbs up. All right, it's time for the first time in 2026. It's time to carry on my wayward son.
She got
she knows what she's doing. All right, I give Kerry 5 statements. He's got to tell us if he's on board or not. We're going to start out in college football as Christian McCaffrey has taken a carry inside the 10. Number 1, Kerry, Dan Lanning is the reason Oregon has been blown out of the last 2 college football playoffs. You on board with that or not?
I'm going to say I'm on board with that. I'm definitely on board with that. I'm on board. Dan Lanning has had everything that he needs to win the championship in Oregon, and this has been going on for a long time. He gets to the big game, and he cannot get it done. So eventually, the same thing that I said with Harbaugh, who I seem to not like, kind of falls into the same thing with Dan Lanning. So, yes, I'm going to be on with that one, Dan.
Speaking of John Harbaugh, he's our next topic here. Baltimore will be better without John Harbaugh next season.
That's a layered one, especially with all these reports coming out now about all this friction. But I'm going to say in this first year without Harbaugh, they're going to be better. So I'm on board with that.
You're on board with that. Are you on board with Mike McDaniel being an NFL head coach again? Dolphins head man fired this past week.
Kerry's out of the building for a minute, so I'm going to speak for him as his representative.
Okay.
I'm off the Mike McDaniel being a head coach.
I'll do that as well. I like Mike McDaniel.
I know you do. I like it. I only say that and not.
Who are the
Yes, it is. Welcome in to Warriors Live here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you live from Chase Center as we get ready for Warriors and Hawks. Tip-off is about an hour away. As always, of course, right here on 95.7 The Game, and Warriors Live, as always, is presented by Xfinity. Your home court advantage brought to you by Xfinity. Watch all your favorite teams all in one place. Xfinity, imagine that. I imagine a lot of you guys are getting ready for Warriors basketball by watching some Niner football. basketball, I'll just let you know the Niners did just score a touchdown, so they go ahead in the fourth quarter. I will let you know what happens if we get the final score of that game before I'm off the air here in about 25 minutes. But until then, it's Warriors basketball on Warriors Live. Of course, the Warriors playing their best basketball that they have all season long. They're 8-3 in their last 11. They come in at 21-18, still sitting at 8th in the Western Conference, but beginning to shorten the gap between them and a team like the Phoenix Suns, currently in 7th, and a couple of teams ahead of them as well. The Warriors, again, 21-18. They've won 8 of their last 11. The Hawks come in at 19-21. They are 9th in the Eastern Conference, the Atlanta Hawks. Strangely, about the Hawks, they're a better road team than they are a home team. The Hawks are 7-11 in Atlanta so far this season, and 12-10 on the road. We'll see if the Warriors can hand them their 11th road loss of the season here tonight. The Hawks have been in the news of late across the NBA because they made to date the biggest trade of this NBA season. The trade deadline is now less than a month away, February 5th. That's a Thursday. Less than a month away from the trade deadline, but Trey Young was traded this past week from the Hawks to the Washington Wizards. It was Trey Young to the Wizards. And what did the Hawks get back? Well, they got back C.J. McCollum, a player the Warriors know very well from his time in Portland with Dame and the Blazers, and Corey Kispert. Kispert, a sharp-shooting wing, hasn't really done a whole lot so far in his NBA time, just signed a 4-year extension before last season, so still has 3 years of team control. C.J. McCollum, though, is on an expiring contract. His $30.6 million after this year, that's it. That's all that's left on the contract. So essentially, what did the Hawks get back for Trey Young, who was at one point their franchise centerpiece and the guy they wanted to build around, and a guy who was the most important player on a team that got to the Eastern Conference Finals? You remember that? Yeah, Atlanta was in the Eastern Conference Finals a handful of years ago. That guy, Trey Young, who was the face of that franchise, has fallen so far out of favor, not just in Atlanta, but across the league, that the Hawks decided to part with him just to get back a role player at best in Corey Kispert, and then a scorer, a veteran old scorer in C.J. McCollum, but who is not under contract beyond this season. So what do the Hawks get? The Hawks get some money opening up heading into next year as they try to kind of restart their franchise with a player like a Jaylen Johnson, who we're going to talk about coming up here on Warriors Live. But again, welcome in. Mark Randy with you here on 95.7 The Game. As we get ready for Warriors and Hawks. The Hawks have had kind of a strange season so far as well. The Hawks 19-21, as I mentioned, 9th in the Eastern Conference, a better road team than a home team, which is really odd in today's NBA. They began the season 13-8. 13-8 were the Hawks. Things were looking great. And then things have kind of fallen apart since then. They're 6-13 in their last 19 games. In those 19 games, those 13 losses, those losses include to the Clippers. That was before the Clippers were playing a whole lot better, and nobody was losing to the Clippers, essentially. The Hawks did. The Hornets, they lost to the Hornets of late in this 19-game stretch where they're just 6-13. They've lost to the Bulls twice. They've lost to the Raptors twice. Now, those Raptors losses are not terrible by any stretch, but they've had a handful of head-scratching losses. This is not just a stretch where you say, well, you're playing all the best teams in the NBA, and 6-13 kind of sounds right when you play the win-loss game on the schedule. The Hawks have not been playing good basketball of late. That, paired with the trends around Trey Young, not just this year, but of late, it led to the Hawks, cutting bait and ultimately moving on from, again, the guy that once was their franchise centerpiece, and I say once was, not that long ago was their franchise centerpiece. Trey Young, in his 8th year out of Oklahoma, again, one of the more unique offensive players that has been in the NBA in his 8 years in the league. On his career, he averages 25 points per game, 3.5 rebounds per game, nearly 10 assists per game, is a 43% shooter on his career, 35% from deep, 87% from the free throw line. This season, though, averaged a little more than 19 points per game, 19.3 points per game. That's the lowest he's had in the NBA since he was a rookie. Again, he's in his 8th year, his lowest scoring output per game since his rookie year. His rebounds are down, his assists were down, and his shooting numbers down all the way across the board. Trey Young shooting just 30% from deep so far this season, and he's only played in 10 games. And how about this? The Hawks, with Trey Young active and playing, were 2-8. Trey Young has played in 10 games this year for the Hawks. The Hawks were 2-8 in those 10 games, which means without Trey Young available when he was out, and he's been dealing with some quad issues, a knee issue, without Trey Young this year due to whatever the injury was, they're 17-13. It's not a gigantic sample, specifically the 10 games that he's played in, but the evidence is screaming at the Atlanta Hawks, and they've heard it. They are a better basketball team, at least they have been this year without Trey Young, so they decided to move on from Trey Young, and they begin what I'm going to describe as the Jaylen Johnson era. If you do not yet know who Jaylen Johnson is, I would say he's probably reason number one why the Hawks felt comfortable moving on from Trey Young. Not the same kind of player at all. In fact, it's hard for them to be much more different. Jaylen Johnson, 6'8". He was the 20th pick in the 2021 NBA draft out of Duke. Yes, that's the same draft class as Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, and Johnson was picked after both of those guys. This year, Jaylen Johnson is averaging about 24 points per game. That's 21st best in the NBA. He's averaging over 10 rebounds per game, 8th best in the entire NBA, and he's averaging over 8 assists per game. That is 5th best in the NBA. And it's not just like he's a one kind of player in terms of an offensive player. He can score at all three levels. He got his three-point shot up to 37% so far this season, so he's more than respectable from the outside. He's an athletic freak. He can drive. He can finish around the rim. He is one of the best all-around players in the NBA, and I think it's reason number one why the Hawks said, all right, you know what, Trey, we're all right. We're all right, and we're willing to cut bait, even though Trey Young's value is at an all-time low right now, and they didn't really recoup much value at all. Although in today's NBA, with all the salary restrictions and the different aprons and the punishments, where if you're in the apron for multiple years and all that, and how difficult that makes it on ownership and front offices to put together a competent roster. What the best thing that the Hawks got for the Trey Young trade was cap flexibility beginning next year, because that's when CJ McCollum's deal is up, and that was the main source of money that came back to Atlanta in the Trey Young trade. So we'll see what they do with it next offseason, this coming offseason. That's really going to be the initial first read, first real gauge on whether or not the Hawks won this trade, because if they use that money and they get a good player or two, then absolutely it makes it worth it. But if they just pocket the money and the ownership doesn't want to spend anymore, then it's all right. If you're a fan of the Atlanta Hawks, I think you had every right to be frustrated. But reason number one why this Hawks team I think felt comfortable moving on from Trey Young, in addition to what I was saying earlier, where they're just 2-8 in the 10 games that he's played so far this season, it's because of Jaylen Johnson. And the Hawks being in the Eastern Conference, if you haven't seen a lot of him and the Hawks in general, you're in for a treat, because he is one hell of a basketball player, and the Warriors are going to have their hands full defending him. Again, 6'8", but can do a lot of different things on the basketball court on the offensive end. You think about what Deni Avdija does for the Blazers, a bigger guard that has the ball in his hands a lot, that drives, that dishes, that can score. And Deni Avdija has really hurt the Warriors in the 3 games that they've played against the Blazers. The Blazers have won all of those games. Jaylen Johnson is not like an identical player, but in terms of a body type and a skill set, they are somewhat similar. So we'll see how the Warriors defend Jaylen Johnson. Is that going to meet Draymond on him from the beginning? Because Draymond is probably the Warriors' best option against a number of guys. But do you want Draymond kind of playing off of the best player so that he can perhaps play a little bit more center field or free safety, if we're comparing this to an NFL defense? And I know that's where a lot of our minds are right now. The Eagles, by the way, are driving. They're down by 4 in the final 2 minutes of that game in Philadelphia against the Niners. I'll give you a score update if we do get it before we get on out of here in about 15 minutes. But the Warriors have in the past stated a preference to have Draymond play off of the opposing team's best player so that he can help in a number of different areas on the defensive end of the floor. Do you put Jimmy Butler on Jaylen Johnson? Do you put Moses Moody on Jaylen Johnson? Will we see some GP2 on Jaylen Johnson? What about D'Anthony Melton? Melton's probably a little bit too small. You could say the same about GP2, but that hasn't really stopped the Warriors from trying him against bigger guys in the past. So we'll see how it plays out. That, in my mind, is matchup number one. How do you defend Jaylen Johnson in this game? This is Warriors Live, presented by Xfinity, your home court advantage, brought to you by Xfinity. Watch all your favorite teams all in one place. Xfinity, imagine that. Let's get to our injury report, which is brought to you by Boxer & Gerson, Northern California's premier workers' compensation law firm, helping injured workers get their lives back for over 40 years. For more information, visit boxerlaw.com. It's a pretty straightforward injury report for the Warriors here today. Just one name on the injury report, at least one name that you would expect might have a chance to play for the Warriors. It is just Seth Curry, who is still dealing with left sciatic nerve irritation. He is still out, and the Warriors actually announced an update on Seth Curry about an hour ago or so. I'm just going to read straight from the release. This comes courtesy of Warriors PR. Quote, Golden State Warriors guard Seth Curry, who has missed the last 12 games due to a sciatic nerve-related injury, was recently reevaluated. The reevaluation indicated that Curry is making progress. He is working with the team's training staff on a daily basis, primarily in the weight room and training room, and will be reevaluated again in 2 weeks. That's the update on Seth Curry. The reevaluation indicated he's making progress. I think it's important to note the lack of a word like good progress or significant progress. Oftentimes, these updates do include a word like that was not included here, and the work that he's doing is not on the court at all. It's just training with the training staff in the weight room and the training room, and he'll be reevaluated again in 2 weeks. So, does not look like it's anytime soon for Seth Curry. Now, given what the Warriors, how the Warriors are playing right now, I don't think that the Seth Curry absence really leaves anybody all that concerned for the Warriors. And more on that coming up in just a second. But the only injury for the Warriors is Seth Curry, who remains out. Meanwhile, for the Hawks, Kristaps Porzingis left Achilles tendonitis. He is out. Second straight game missed. He had played in 4 of the Hawks' previous 5 games before tonight and their most recent game. He's only played, though, in 17 games so far this season. And then Zachary Rissache left knee inflammation. He is out as well. He missed their last game, but has only missed a total of 4 games so far this season. And you might remember Rissache, the number 1 overall pick back in the 2024 NBA draft. He's in his second season, has largely been healthy, but dealing with some knee inflammation. He is out in this game as well. Speaking of that Seth Curry injury, though, and the Warriors feeling pretty good about their rotations, I'll just put it this way. Even if Seth Curry was available, I think it's unlikely that he would play in this basketball game. With that, I want to go to something Steve Kerr said after the Warriors' most recent game, that dominant win on Friday versus the Kings, a game in which it was a tie game late in the third quarter, and then the Warriors ultimately closed that game out and dominate down the stretch. Steve Kerr, post-game on Friday versus the Kings, talking about how they feel like they're in a groove with the rotation. Here is Warriors head coach Steve Kerr post-game on Friday.
Was the first time we've really seen kind of the team that we anticipated over the summer when we signed these guys. Real pros, two-way players, guys who can play in any type of game. So last night to have Melt out there for 24, 25 minutes and Al for 19.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a good groove with our rotation, and it helps to, have the same lineups out there, to have, Melt and Al both healthy and playing well. And it feels like the version of the team that we expected, when we signed those guys over the summer with the depth. And so we're getting into a good groove.
All right, that's Steve Kerr. And yeah, the beginning cut you heard was one that I want to play coming up in just a little bit. But yeah, they're in a groove with their rotation. So the Seth Curry injury is one to keep our eye on. But again, even if he's healthy, I don't think that the Warriors are looking to him to play any kind of major minutes, and probably not playing any minutes. So we'll see where it goes from here. By the way, I can provide you with an update from Philadelphia as we continue to get ready for Warriors versus Hawks here at Chase Center. The Eagles just turned the ball over on downs, and the Niners are taking a couple of knees to end this football game. The Niners are going to advance to the divisional round of the NFC playoffs. Hell of an effort by the 49ers. And if you are looking for some Niners content, I do believe that Joe Shasky is going to be going live on YouTube coming up in just moments, if he's not already live right now on our 95.7 The Game YouTube channel. So if you want to check that out, you can do so. I think once I get off the air here in about 8 minutes, I'm going to hop on with him to talk a little bit about that football game before we actually have Warriors basketball tipping off at the top at 5:30 here on 95.7 The Game. So that's coming up. And it's a whole separate thing, but congratulations. What a performance by the 49ers. But back to the Warriors as we continue to get ready for Warriors basketball here on Warriors Live, presented by Xfinity, your home court advantage, brought to you by Xfinity. Watch all your favorite teams all in one place. Xfinity, imagine that. Let's hear that, Cam, that cut that you just played from Steve Kerr about that Bucks game. This is what I want to hear coming up next, because this is also, I think, related to why the Warriors feel so good about their rotations and why they are 8-3 in their last 11 games. DeAnthony Melton specifically, in his last 2 games versus Milwaukee on Wednesday, 22 points, 5 of 9 from deep, and then versus the Kings on Friday, 19 points, 3 of 6 from deep. You're kind of finally, if you're the Warriors, getting the contributions from those veterans, DeAnthony Melton and Al Horford, your 2 big offseason acquisitions. And I don't think it's any surprise when those guys are playing well, you as a team look as good as